Welcome everyone to RPG Frequencies. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Hope you like the content and please comment or give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And if you are a subscriber or and follow me, thanks for coming back. So today I'm going to be talking about Grimscar RPG, and I'm going to do two videos. This first video is just going to be a walkthrough of the demo PDF, and this is available for free on itch.io. This is a current Kickstarter, and I did back it already. I kind of went all in with the PDF, the book, and also some cards that come with the game. So this is right up my alley. It's obviously kind of a grim dark solo RPG, and the Kickstarter, as of the recording of this video, it's got a little over 2 weeks left. It's already fully funded, so I think this is going to be a really fun game. And I will do a playthrough of the on the next video I do. I did put this into Sojur VTT, and the author or the creator has been kind enough to allow me to release that for free. I'm also doing some other things like some form fillable PDFs and some things to make it hopefully easier to use. So let me briefly show you. I'm going to open for the moment the page, where you can get this. So I'll do a link to this, but here is the itch.io page. The current version is 82.82, I should say. And again, this is a fully playable version, just a demo version. And you can see I've already done some comments on this. Really interested in the game. I will tell you that the game gives me vibes of Carnathalis by Black Oath Entertainment, which I love. And the reason it does is just the combat looks like it's going to be pretty crunchy. It's not by any means the same mechanics as Carnathalis, but it just reminds me with the ability of the enemy to do things like add dice to their rolls depending on how the combat goes, and it just allows you to use like stats. So just the crunchiness, I guess, is what reminds me a bit of Carnathalis, which I love. And also, it gives me vibes of 2D6 Dungeon by Toby Lancaster, which I love that game as well. So the creatures in this game give you the ability to use, or sorry, they have the ability to use trigger abilities, and those happen on certain rolls. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of the interrupts, but again, it's by no means the same combat as Carnathalis or 2D6 Dungeon, but I do find things that I like in both of those games I see present in Grimscar, which is one of the reasons I like it. So let's jump into this. Before I dive into the PDF, one other thing, here's the Kickstarter page, and I will post a link to this as well so you can see as of today. Oh, there's people already continuing to pledge for it, but there's 16 days left, and so we're already well over the funding goal. All right, I am going to turn off the main screen and turn on my PDF, put up my PDF again. There we go. All right, so let's just flip through. So this is designed by Gunnar Almer. I've been in correspondence with I think it's the project manager. He's been great. I've been doing some back and forth emails with him, sending him files, sending him PDFs and comments on the demo and some corrections and things, and he's been super responsive. All right. So Gunnar Almer, again, project director. I'm not going to worry as much. I will flip through a lot of this PDF, given it's a demo and it's available for free. I'm not worried about giving away anything that people can't already find available again for free. So let's go here, table index. And why is it? Oh, of course, I've already clicked the wrong button. Here we go. All right. So I love the content warning. There is some body horror, mind control, violence, all things that I'm very comfortable with. I love my games like horror. I love Shadow the Demon Lord, that type of vibe. So if this is not your bailiwick or cup of tea, as it were, feel free to pause the video, stop the video, and move on to something that is more enjoyable for you, of course. All right. So again, this is a free demo version, solo player, grim dark fantasy medieval world. I like the art. I like the black and white art already. And if you want to be part of the kind of the playtesting, proofreading, and what have you, I would encourage you to download this. And they give you an email where you can respond with comments, questions, or any corrections that you find. A little bit about solo role playing, the setting. So it's in a massive unending forest known as the Dark Weald, and you are born and bred in a town called Grimscar. And let's see, there's another thing I like about this is there's a town addendum at the back of this. We'll see how far I get into this and how much I show, but there's a pretty fully fleshed out town. There's people you can meet. There's quests that you can take on with those people. Some of them unlock. It's a little bit like, in that respect, it reminds me again of some RPGs on like iOS or I suppose on the PC as well, but where you can take on quests and some get unlocked later on in the adventures and what have you. Character creation, there's a little bit of a walkthrough. I won't go through that to spoil it. I might do it or I might not. I might just jump into the game when I play. But there's a little bit of a dialogue back and forth on character creation, which is fun, very straightforward and very quick. But there are a number of stats, and the stats are not like most like traditional D&D type games. So you're not going to have your like strength, dex, con, wisdom, intelligence, charisma, that kind of thing. In this case, you have 6 psyche stats, which reflect kind of how your mind is. And those are rage, hatred, butcher, patience, pity, and hope. The cool thing is you can use these stats. They can't go below 0, as you can see here, but you can use these stats within the game. So as you're attacking or in combat, you can use some of these to improve your chance of winning the combat. So these all start at 5. So you start at level 5 for these. And let's see, physical stats. So there's psyche stats and physical stats. Physical stats are survival, charm, reputation, and wear. Wear is a bit of a catch-all on how are you doing in the world in terms of, physically. How are you holding up to the pressure? So these stats start at differing levels. So survival starts at 4, charm 2, reputation 1. Reputation obviously will grow as you like complete quests and do things. The see, wear starts at 0, and for every 10 points of wear, you gain a minor wounds death line. And I'll go through that. Death line is basically your max wounds that you can get to before you die. And there are there's 2 types of wounds, minor wounds, major wounds. So minor wounds you can take up to 10, but once you get 10, you die. And the same for major wounds, and there are only 3 that you get of major wounds. So either one of those, if you get to the cap or the death line, you'll die. So you start it at 0, of course. Let's see, you can get healed by someone in town named Martha Shaw. You can visit her, and if you have a major wound, you might have to take a quest. I think you do have to take a quest in order to have her heal you. There are different professions. You can roll on a D8, or you can actually just pick one of these. They all give you just a little bit of a bonus to your opening stats, your beginning stats. So you might get butcher, hatred, rage, pity, what have you. So depending on what you are, the dice that you get you get 2 dice to start, a combat die and a reserve die. So it's kind of a cool mechanic. You initially will have a D6 for your combat die, and then if you want to improve your chances, you can to win the combat, you can use your reserve die. So you write those in your character sheet to start. So I'll show that as we get into combat a little bit. This is again reminds me of Cairnathalis, and I know a lot of systems I think have done this on like usage dies, but for your combat die, it can upsize or downsize. So if you downsize a D8, it becomes a D6. Upsize a D10, it goes to D12. You can't upsize above a D20 or downsize below a D4. So obviously the ranges are D4 to D20. And here's a little chart or a little table, I guess, that shows you how you start your session with a D6 and a D4 die. So the weapons, this is a pretty like grimdark, low magic from what I've seen setting. So you're more of a normal person, and I tend to draw upon games that I like and I've played. So in that respect, This reminds me just a little bit of Under Ashen Skies, but another Black Oath Entertainment game. I love Alex. And in that one, you're like a normal person. So this one I view like you start more like a normal person, and your weapons are really kind of what's available in the town, which isn't a whole lot. It's really hard to come by. So you do start with a blunted sword and a wooden buckler given to you by the alderman, and his name is Silas Croft. They don't give you any bonus, but at least you can use them to engage in combat, and they do give you the combat die and the reserve die. So you'll find better weapons, hopefully, as you complete quests and what have you. You can buy some at an armory. So again, there's a person in town by the name of Farnham Ravencloud, and you can find more, or you can buy more equipment from that person. Armor, again, interesting. Armor doesn't necessarily just, you don't look at your defense and immediately like subtract that from a roll. You can make an armor save. So with your wooden buckler, you get a +1 to your armor save. And I think we'll go through that in a bit. I'm kind of scanning through this, but when we get into the combat section, it'll talk a little bit more about how you use the armor save. You can wear as many pieces of armor, but you cannot wear 2 or more pieces of armor on the same body part. I think that means obviously just 1 each. There are 4 main areas that armor can be worn: head, armor, torso, and leg. So from this starting selection, you're able to wear 2 items because only torso and arm are covered. Clothing and warmth. So depending on, I haven't got it, again, I haven't played this yet, but I think you can get, you can probably have some effects if you get into a cold section of the forest. So it does say you can wear 2 items on each location, just not the same or type of items. So you can't wear 2 pairs of boots or 2 helmets. That makes sense. And for inventory, you start with an oil lamp, a backpack, and the way it works. So I have created PDFs, so I'll have to play around with this. But what it says is the backpack allows you to carry as many items as you can write on your character sheet. So in your box. So I guess if you write small, you can load yourself up with more. But yeah, I guess that is a solo game. You can probably handle that as you'd like. And you start with 1 ration, 2 copper coins, and there's different coins that I think we'll flip through and get here. But you start with copper coin, half coin, and then I think it's wooden tokens. Wooden half coins are, as you would expect, half the value of a copper coin, and a wooden token, I believe, is a quarter of the value of a copper coin, or half of a half coin. It's called a half coin. So you start with a tunic, which is on your body, gives you warmth 3, and cloth boots, on your legs, so warmth 2. So you start with a warmth 5. And let's see, talks a bit about character motivation, quest. So your initial quest will be a quest from the alderman. You don't have to take that. You can choose, I believe, to go into town and choose some different types of quests. And I think, again, some of them you have to unlock, but it's cool. It goes through like a bit of a story. I won't get too far into those. I don't want to spoil those. Even though it's a demo, I don't want to spoil like the quests for you, because there is a dialogue, and at least the first time you read it, it'll be unique and new for you. Hidden quests, it sounds like if you find an item or if you get a piece of information on a quest, then there might be some things that are unlocked for you. A lot of tables in here, which is awesome. I love, as a solo game, I love to have a lot of tables that give you unique things to find and unique things to do. If you fail to find a quest, or find the object that you're looking for in the quest, then you can always come back the next day. Again, you can visit people, and it looks like you can visit each of them once between journeys, and into the Dark Weald, which is the name of the actual forest that you'll be going into. All right. Gosh, I keep doing that. I keep hitting the wrong button. Apologies for that. Let's go back to the beginning, and let's flip a little bit further. Went through that. Visiting people. Okay, inactivity. There is some mechanical detriment if you are inactive. So like if you have to go back into town for every week, you have to stay in town to heal up. I guess you're distracted, so you lose a reputation. That's kind of a cool function that, hey, you may have to heal up, but as you're doing that, you're not really growing your reputation. So you lose a little bit, you lose some hope. You also potentially get some wear if you spend 2 consecutive weeks. As you explore the forest, I like this feature. You'll have a journey map that you will fill out as you explore and roll to find out what you encounter when you go into the forest. Some of the features that you'll find will be permanent, and you'll mark those as permanent. Some will just be an encounter, so it'll be on the map, on the journey map, but the minute you go back into town, when you do go back into the forest, only those features that are marked and designated as permanent features will you will you keep on the journey map. So the squares that were just like a normal square and weren't permanent, you might, I believe, find something different the next time you go into the forest. All right, this describes kind of how you move a hex per turn. There are various types of sections of the forest. There's the normal part of the forest. There's dark forest and the savage forest. The further you go out into the deep woods, and this explains a little bit about writing on the map key, exploring. You can only explore up to 24 hexes in one journey, and if you don't make it back by the 25th hex, you've perished. So I think that means literally that you can only explore 24. Like, I think you can. What I'm trying to figure out is if you go through 24, when you go back, as long as you go back through the same path, I don't think you would die. I'll have to learn that as I go through this. You can track back and get back. You only have up to 2 of each type of permanent feature, so you might have a couple that are the same. It talks about writing again the permanent hexes on the new journey map, but otherwise the new journey map when you leave and come back will be unique. This shows you a bit. You're gonna have numbers for each of the hexes as you explore, and you can see all these white sections are the initial part of the forest, and then they start getting a little bit more of a thatching for I think that's the dark forest, and the savage forest has what looks like almost teeth or I don't know, it looks like teeth or jagged edges to them on the outside. So you'll write on those. Anything that's permanent, you'll write with a letter token, and then you'll remember, like, this would get erased up here on your map for the journey map when you go back into the forest, but you would keep that A and you would keep that on your journey map because that's permanent. All right, tracking back. So it does talk about you can go back the same way you came, or you can go back a different route, but you might encounter different encounters or what have you. So combat. So again, this is where it's a little bit, from in my perspective, a little crunchy, and I like it. It's unique, but each character and creature have a combat and reserve die, and combat's broken down into rounds with your characters rolling the combat die. I have to remember that. I think I already started doing a quick test of this game, and I immediately went to roll a d20. It's just ingrained in my mind that combat is a d20. But in this case, you would start rolling that primary combat die. So the enemy does the same, and that's the attack roll. Whoever rolls higher wins that round of combat. On a draw, you would roll both dice again, and the loser takes damage. That we'll walk through this. But there's some exceptions, and again, there's some complexity to this. There's a combat sheet in the back that I'll flip through to show you how to record and track your combat. And I've got this all in Sojor, and the creator again was kind enough to allow me to release that for free. So I'm going to start on my Discord channel, releasing that module in my Sojor channel. That where the creator of Sojor actually comes into my Discord and he participates. But I have a number of games where I've released free Sojor modules. Sojor itself is $10. So if you do a lot of solo gaming, I'd encourage you to check it out, see if it's something you like. So sorry for the digression. All right, so adding reserve dice. So you can add your reserve die once in a combat. So only once in every combat. So you would roll it and add it to an attack roll in one round. The enemy also has a reserve die. So if the enemy draws a round, it will use the reserve die. Or if it loses a round and the difference is equal to or less than half its reserve die. So if its reserve die is 4, you roll, let's say, a 6, it rolls a 4. Since the difference between your 6 and a 4 is at 2, and that's equal to or less than half of its reserve die, it would roll its reserve die. And I believe, again, since you can only use yours once in combat, I'm assuming the enemy can only use that reserve die once in combat as well, but I might have to ask that question. So let's see. So this has a couple of examples. Again, how you use that. Oh, there it is right here. Like your character, enemies can only use a reserve die once in combat. So that's cool. So this one, this is kind of scary. Like, so this is a bark fiend, and if you've played 2d6 Dungeon, you'll probably understand what I mean when I say it. There's just a little bit of similarity for me. So trigger abilities to me are like interrupts in 2d6. So if they roll on their die, their combat die is a d8. They roll a 7 or an 8, then these trigger abilities automatically happen. So I think that makes combat a little bit more fun, unique. I like combat to be fast, but I like there to be some crunchiness in it. So I find that interesting, and I think it'll keep me a little more engaged in the combat. So let's see, the enemy's wound stats are how many of the type of wound they can take before dying. So the Bark Fiend will die on an 8th minor wound or a 3rd major wound, as you can see in its stat block. If you have 2 reserve die, or if the creature has 2 reserve dice, you can't split them up for 2 different rolls and rounds. Instead, you'd roll them all at the same time and add that combined total to your result. All right, adding a psych stat to your attack roll. So again, I did a whole flowchart on this, and I sent that to creator. The creator, he's probably thinking I'm a little crazy by getting so involved, but that's what I do. I find games I like, and I try to create things for it, modules and supplements that will hopefully help people. But in this case, so one of the other things you can do is you can add one of your psyche stats to the attack roll after you've rolled it. So if you had a butcher of 4 for your score, you can add this 4 to the attack roll. But then after that combat round, you have to roll on the related stat consequence table. I actually didn't read that. Man, I really need to pay attention to this. So I like that. So if you have a butcher of 4, you can just add that to your attack roll. But after the combat round is done, then you would roll on the stat consequence table to see what happens. In the example here, you would have to roll in the butcher stat consequence table. If you kill the creature with the attack, then you add the psyche stat to that you add the psyche stat to. Do not roll in the consequence table and Ted gain 2 wear. Let me read that again. You kill the creature with the attack. So I guess if you kill that creature outright with the attack where you used your psyche stat, you don't roll on the consequence table, but you still gain 2 wear. So there's always a consequence of you using your stats. And you can only roll, I know it says here somewhere, yeah, you can only use each stat once in a single combat. So let's see, whenever you use the rage, hatred, or butcher stat in combat, +1 to that stat with no cap. So that's interesting. I haven't talked to them about that, but it sounds like there is a consequence, but you raise that level of that stat, rage, hatred, or butcher. So I would, if I had a 4, I believe that means I raise it up to a 5 and there's no cap, but I could get a stat consequence or 2 wear. If you use patience, pity, or hope, you get -1 to that stat. That's going to be interesting to see how that works in practice. If a stat reaches 0, then it can't be used and no further deductions are applied. Makes sense. Trigger abilities, just what you'd think. If that happens, you just immediately would adjudicate that trigger, and you cannot block any trigger abilities. Okay. So after you get through all that, you decide, do you use your psyche stat? Do you use any of these things or not? And you finally adjudicate the combat. Then you determine who won that round. And when you take damage, you either receive a minor or a major wound. So if the winning attack roll is more than the loser's attack roll after modifiers, what that's supposed to say, I think he dropped something there, but it's supposed to say if the winning attack roll is more than double. So I don't know if it's equal to or greater than, but the way it reads, I believe, is more than double the loser's attack roll after modifiers. The loser receives a major wound that round. If the winning attack roll is less than double the loser's attack roll after modifiers, the loser receives a minor wound. So I think that means equal to or greater than double. So if I get my attack roll's a 10 and his is a 5 or less, then he would receive a major wound, or I would receive a major wound. All right. So if either of those stats is reduced to 0, major or minor wounds, death is instant. So there's no death saving throws or what have you. I kind of like that. The minor wounds are, they're bruises, scrapes, knocks, cuts. So obviously it's the accumulation of them that really does damage to you. Major wounds are serious and affect you immediately. When you get one, you're going to have to roll on a major wounds table, and you cannot attempt to heal those while on a journey. You have to wait to get back into town. All right, armor save. So you get an armor save, the enemy would not, but if you do have armor, and we do start with that wooden buckler that gives us a +1 to armor save, so you can try to reduce that. So to do this, you roll your combat die again, including any upsize or downsize that may have been applied. So in my case, if I have a D6, I would roll my D6 and add my combat or my combined armor modifier. So in my case, it would just be a +1. So if the total is above the enemy's or over the enemy's successful combat dice roll that caused you damage, then your armor is deflected some or all of the damage. So if I roll, so if his final, let's just say he won and he rolled a 6. So if I roll my D6 +1, and if I get a 6 or say a 7, I get a 6 on the die +1, then minor wounds are ignored, so it gets wiped out, and major wounds become minor wounds. You can only, I don't know if the enemies have more than one attack, or you might face multiple enemies. You can only make one armor save per round. So again, I kind of like this. There's a lot to it, but you can do various ways. You can either avoid, or you can win the combat so you don't take damage, or you can do the armor save and minimize or eliminate damage. And I kind of like that it's just one round. Like, it's not that you go, they go. You guys are doing this simultaneously. I kind of like that. Talks about multiple enemies, but so you get to strike once, they get to strike more. You can flee in combat. And in general, as I understand that, what that means is you can flee out, but you lose a hope and gain 2 wear. And it does become, at least, I guess what I would say, a semi-permanent feature of the map, because it now becomes a lair hex. And it will be a permanent feature until you defeat that creature. And once you defeat that creature, then it would come back to a normal square. So there is a little bit of ways to try to heal yourself in after combat. So after a fight, you can kind of improvise and heal yourself 1 minor wound. And to do that, you would deduct 1 survival point or spend a ration. Obviously, if you don't have a 1 or higher on your survival points, or if you don't have a ration, then you can't heal. When you rest overnight, your minor wounds reset to 0, and you cannot rest in the Dark Weald. You have to go back in town. And again, major wounds, you would have to find Martha in town, or you don't really need to find her, but obviously you just need to go and see her in town. So the town Addendum, so there's a network of villages and towns called the Bowerwood, and maybe there'll be more supplements and additions over time. I don't know, but you are a Grimscarian, and you know the history of Grimscar, and this is a small town overhanging timbered buildings and land that's plentiful in wood but lacking in metal. So again, it's very, grim, dark, and not a lot of weapons, armor, and what have you. There's a little bit about the history of Grimscar. I'll let you kind of find that on your own. Talks a bit more about the Dark Weald, the forest you're going to go into, and I don't want to spoil some of that. Magic and belief. In general, what I see is that there's not a ton of magic. There is something called marked vellum, and what it sounds like there are small scraps of hide that are scored, so scratched into, marked with runes, words, and images that become imbued with a magical property. So a bit like a scroll, but they're marked vellum. And after you've used them once, they burned and turned to ashes. And it does say that these items often appear disgusting, and many are made of human flesh. So I kind of imagine like a torn off human flesh, marked with these ancient symbols or what have you. So there's demons within Grimscar, or within the setting. I haven't read much about that yet, so I'll let you kind of find that your own. There are many minor gods. That says their presence is not felt very often, or in fact, it says rarely. There's market and armory, and there's people that you can find in town. Again, copper coins, I was right, half coins, and then wooden tokens are worth 1/4 of a copper coin. So pretty straightforward. And then you get into citizens. I don't want to go through a lot of these but you can see it's pretty robust. All of the bolded individuals are people that you can interact with. So I'll let you find them on their own. So I'll kind of flip past here, but there's approachable citizens that you can find right away. And then there's more, I don't know what they're called. I'll flip to them. There's some of the weapons that you can find, kind of cool, very crude looking. And there's quests, as you can see as I'm flipping through here quickly. There's quests you can find with these folks. And then there's restricted citizens. So this is where they're not accessible in the demo version, but if you do purchase the Kickstarter or participate, or if you buy after the Kickstarter, there's going to be a whole sections, I believe, that will unlock. There's no level system that I've seen. So I think it's based on your interactions, and maybe as you find things in the Dark Weald and as you pass or maybe complete certain quests, then you might have access to other citizens, which is cool. Tons of tables. So as you look through here, there's forest tables. You'll notice here again on the right-hand side, is it permanent or not? And you roll a D100. There's numerous entries. Some of them, maybe there's, I haven't looked, but, and if you roll the same result consecutively, re-roll. So probably something you want to track. Like if you get the tied up man and the very next time you're rolling on this table, you get this again, you would re-roll. But let's see, in general, it'll tell you if it is permanent. So all of these so far are not permanent. So there's one that is permanent. I love, I don't want to spoil this for myself either, but I love the fact that there's a lot of detail on these. So I'm really excited to get through these tables, discover the world and the dark forest. And again, a lot of detail in here. So that was the forest. Then you'll also have tables for the dark forest and savage forest. But again, since this is a demo, you're only going to have access to the first section of the forest. But you'll have more to look forward to once the Kickstarter is finished. Encounters table, again, I haven't looked at this, but kindness table, Alderman's quest. So I think if you pass the quest and find the object that you need, you come back here, and depending on what you roll on a D6, then you'll get varying degrees of loot or, items from completing the quest. Body search table, broken bones table, clothing tables. So again, I think all of this is based on what you might find or maybe purchase. Creature major wounds table. So if they get a major wound while you're fighting them, then they will get cumulative penalties, which is cool. So you would roll on this when the creature you're fighting receives a major wound. Found body table, so maybe there's different things you can find there. Have this table, I like that. I'm not sure what that is. Heart chamber table, cool. Item and rubble table, left offering table, major wound table. So this is when you take a major wound. The other one I showed you was if the creature takes a major wound. So let's go. Marked vellum table. So again, if you find, maybe as part of your adventures or encounters, you might find a marked vellum. And if you do, then you can roll on this, I suppose, and see what you find. Revealed from below table. Again, don't know what that is. Savage scar table, cool. Unusual moss table, stat consequence. So again, if you use your rage stat, and if you don't kill the enemy in that round, then you would have to roll on this. And it looks like, again, I don't want to spoil this for you or me much, but it looks like you do gain wounds or lose other stats. So there are real consequences for you to try to do that. Pity consequences, these are all the different consequences. So here, very, very straightforward character sheet. I've put this into a form fillable PDF that I might link because he seems fine with me releasing those for free, but it's very simple. I didn't do much with it other than make these fields open for text. So I can share that link, but you have all your stats here. And, one thing I might do, I think the starting stats, I don't think it's ever a cap. So I don't think you need more than one stat. I don't think you need to have like current and I don't know, maybe I'll do that starting stat and then current, depending on whether it's up or down. I don't know. But here's your inventory, quests. You can mark what page number and what quest you're on, combat dice, wounds, and that type of thing. This is the combat sheet. So let's see if I can rotate it. I don't know if this is going to show up very well. Let's just stay on the right-hand side rather than me try to do something and make this look better. So if you start up here and the next page explains each of these sections, but I put this into a form fillable PDF, and this allows you to track your wounds. I also made this to where if you click on each of these in my PDF, it'll have a big X through it because you can only use each of your reserve die and your stats once per combat. So it's something to keep in mind, and it'll be an easy way to track. This, again, tells you just a bit about the combat sheet. So cross off your stats as you use them. You can put in the death lines, what type of creature you're fighting, and then you can write in their trigger ability modifiers. This is the map of the Dark Weald. So this is the journey map. So this is the one that you're going to be using and writing on. I already put these into a laminated sheets so I could kind of do a dry erase. And then I've also got them in Sojur so I can actually, when I do my playthrough, I can do it on the document that I have in Sojur. And you've got Grimscar Town. So again, the white or blank hexes are just the normal forest. The ones that have a little bit of thatching or sketching on them are the dark forest. The ones in the far outside are the savage forest. And again, you're only going to be exploring the normal forest during the demo. Map keys, so you can write down what you've encountered, what the number is. So this is the same map, but it's the permanent features. This is where you will mark anything that you run into on your journey that'll be permanent. So that when you go back next time on your journey map, you're going to erase it all and then only mark those features that should be on the map that are permanent. Otherwise, you're going to encounter something different, whatever hexes you explore. All right, permanent map features. And then here are the creatures. So maybe I'll just do this first page. I don't want to, again, it's a demo, so I guess I'm not spoiling much, but in case you want to discover them on your own, there's about 10, I think. But you have a Bark Fiend, a Bow Demon, and I've put all of these tokens into Sojur, so you'll have the tokens and be able to put these on the map. You've got your reserve dies, combat dies, wounds, rewards. So what are you going to roll on if you beat these monsters or defeat them? Trigger abilities, so on a 7 or 8 on the D8, and it is without modifiers. So if you roll a D8, you have a 2 and 8 or a 25% chance of encountering one of these triggering abilities. So a roll of a 7 or 8 outright would trigger a trigger ability here. Bow Demon on a 6 or a 9. Sin Fanatic would be on a 5 only. And then in that case, it's a Burning Touch. You roll a D6. You get a 1 or a 4, you gain 1 wear. If you get a 5 or a 6, then it adds 2 to its current combat or attack roll. So very cool. I'm going to flip past the next 2 pages quickly. And then I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So I am really excited about this. I will go back and put this, let's go back to the cover. I actually, in my version here, I created bookmarks. There are no bookmarks in the one, but maybe there will be over time as the official version comes out. So I would encourage you, if this is up your alley, take a look at the Kickstarter, see if you're interested, or take a look at the demo, play it first. You've got a couple weeks. If you're looking at this, over the next several days, you'll have almost a full 2 weeks to consider it before you decide if you want to be part of the Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter is really not very expensive at all. So I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I'm fully participating and fully paying for my Kickstarter rewards and in the campaign. So anyway, I hope you like this. If you like it, drop a like, drop a comment, start talking about the game. I'd love to hear from you all and what you think. So next video, I will get into some actual gameplay. So thanks everyone. Appreciate your time and watching the video. And until next time, bye-bye.